Rome declares war on a woman. Rome did not announce the war with drums or trumpets. It whispered first. In the Senate halls, men leaned close to one another, voices low, faces tight with controlled fury. Scrolls were passed. Words were chosen carefully, not to describe truth, but to manufacture outrage. They did not say Mark Antony had betrayed Rome. They said Cleopatra had bewitched him because Rome could tolerate a reckless general, but it could not tolerate a woman who ruled him. The lie that united Rome. Octavian stood before the Senate, calm and composed, a young man draped in restraint while others burned with emotion. He did not shout. He did not accuse directly. He revealed. Letters, real and forged, were read aloud. Antony's devotion to Cleopatra was painted as submission. Egypt was described as decadent, dangerous, foreign. Cleopatra was not called a queen. She was called a threat, a seductress, a sorceress, an Eastern tyrant who planned to move Rome's heart away from Italy. The Senate did not question him. They were afraid, and fear makes lies feel like truth. A war without Antony's name. The declaration was finalized. Rome was at war, but Mark Antony's name was missing. Instead, the enemy was listed as Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt. This was deliberate. Rome did not want to fight a Roman. It wanted to destroy a symbol. Alexandria feels the shift. Cleopatra sensed it before the message arrived. The sea felt heavier, the air tighter. Even the palace halls seemed to echo differently. When the declaration was read aloud, the room fell silent. Antony reacted first, rage exploding from him like fire. He cursed Octavian, the Senate, the Republic itself. Cleopatra did not move. She had expected this. The queen who refused to panic. Cleopatra dismissed the court. When she and Antony were alone, she finally spoke. "They are not afraid of you," she said quietly. "They are afraid of me." Antony protested, swore loyalty, promised Rome would fall before them. Cleopatra looked at him then, not as a lover, but as a strategist. "Rome does not fall quickly," she replied. "It rots slowly, and Octavian is patient." This was not a war of swords alone. It was a war of image, loyalty, and time. Preparing for the inevitable. Cleopatra ordered Egypt to mobilize. Ships were commissioned at impossible speed. Grain reserves were secured. Treasuries opened. Alliances in the east were reinforced with gold and promises. Egypt had wealth. Rome had endurance. Cleopatra knew which was more dangerous. Antony's fatal confidence. Antony believed victory would come easily. He had fought wars all his life. He trusted numbers, strength, and bold action. He dismissed Octavian as a boy hiding behind words. Cleopatra saw what Antony refused to see. Octavian did not fight wars. He let others destroy themselves. The world takes sides. Kings hesitated. Provinces watched carefully. To support Cleopatra meant defying Rome. To abandon her meant betraying a queen who had never broken her word. Some chose gold. Others chose fear. Cleopatra took note of all of them. A queen and her children. At night, Cleopatra stood beside her children's beds. Caesarion, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, Ptolemy Philadelphus. Her legacy slept peacefully, unaware that the greatest empire on earth had already decided their fate. Cleopatra touched Caesarion's hair gently. "They will never forgive you," she whispered, "because you prove Rome is not eternal." The march toward fate. Fleets gathered. Roman banners rose across the Mediterranean. The war everyone feared, but pretended could be controlled, was now inevitable. Cleopatra did not pray. She planned, because queens who pray wait for mercy. Queens who plan rewrite history. The road to Actium. The Mediterranean had never looked so crowded. From the coasts of Greece to the harbours of Egypt, ships gathered like storm clouds pulled by gravity. Oars creaked, sails snapped, and irons scraped against wood as the greatest naval forces of the ancient world prepared for a war that would decide more than territory. This was not just a battle for power, it was a battle for history. Two visions of empire. In Rome, Octavian presented himself as restraint itself. He wore simple clothing. He spoke of duty, tradition, and moral decay. He told Rome that Antony had abandoned discipline for indulgence, reason for passion, and Rome for an Eastern queen. And Rome believed him, because Octavian offered something Rome loved more than truth: control. Across the sea, Cleopatra ruled from Alexandria with a different vision. Her court was alive with scholars, generals, and diplomats. She did not hide Egypt's wealth or culture. She celebrated it. Where Octavian offered fear, Cleopatra offered splendor. Two empires were preparing to collide, and the sea would be their battlefield. The fracture begins. Antony's fleet was massive, but divided. Roman officers whispered behind his back. Some resented Cleopatra's presence. Others feared Rome's propaganda had already poisoned loyalty. Cleopatra noticed everything. She saw hesitation where Antony saw obedience. She felt doubt where Antony trusted devotion. She warned him. "Rome does not need to defeat us," she said quietly. "It only needs to make your men hesitate." Antony brushed it aside. He had never lost faith in force. Cleopatra's stakes were higher. For Antony, defeat meant exile or death. For Cleopatra, it meant erasure. If Rome won, Egypt would not merely lose independence. It would lose memory, identity, and dynasty. Her children would not be paraded as prisoners. They would disappear. Cleopatra understood this war was not about Antony's pride. It was about her survival. The waiting war. Months passed. Supplies dwindled. Morale thinned. Disease crept through camps. Each delay strengthened Octavian's position and weakened Antony's confidence. Cleopatra urged action. Octavian urged patience. History favored patience. Actium approaches. The fleets finally met near Actium on the western coast of Greece. The sea was narrow there, dangerous for large formations, perfect for traps. Cleopatra studied the waters carefully. This was not a place for brute force. It was a place for precision. The choice no one wanted. Cleopatra proposed retreat. Not defeat, but survival. She suggested breaking through Octavian's lines and returning to Egypt, preserving the fleet and treasury, living to fight another day. Antony hesitated. Roman generals scoffed. Retreat sounded like weakness. Cleopatra knew better. She had ruled long enough to understand when survival mattered more than pride. The battle begins. On the morning of the battle, the sea was unnaturally calm. Octavian's fleet moved first, lighter, faster, disciplined. Antony's ships followed, larger, heavier, harder to maneuver. Smoke rose. Fire spread across water. Screams echoed between waves. The Mediterranean turned into a grave. The moment that changed everything. Cleopatra waited. She watched carefully. When she saw the opening, the narrow break in Octavian's formation, she acted. Her ships turned. They broke through. They ran. Antony saw her sails moving away. In that instant, history would accuse her of betrayal. But the truth was far more complicated. Antony followed, and with him went command, morale, and the illusion of unity. Rome writes the story. From Rome's perspective, the story was simple. Cleopatra fled. Antony followed. Rome stood victorious. But wars are not remembered for truth. They are remembered for who survives to tell them. The aftermath. What remained of Antony's fleet collapsed quickly. Octavian did not chase Cleopatra immediately. He smiled, because victory no longer required speed. It only required patience, a queen in flight. Cleopatra returned to Egypt not in shame, but in clarity. She had lost the battle, but the war was not yet finished. As Alexandria's harbour came into view, Cleopatra stood tall at the deck's edge, wind pulling at her robes, eyes fixed on the horizon. Rome was coming, and this time there would be no escape. The fall of Mark Antony. Alexandria did not celebrate Cleopatra's return. The harbour received her ships in silence, as if the city itself understood that something had broken at sea and would never be repaired. The banners still flew, the palace still stood, but hope had begun to decay. Cleopatra felt it the moment her feet touched land. This time Rome was not bluffing, a general without an army. Mark Antony returned days later, not as a conqueror, not as Caesar's heir, but as a man carrying the weight of failure. The soldiers who remained avoided his eyes. Some deserted quietly during the night. Others stayed only because there was nowhere left to go. Antony walked the palace halls like a ghost, haunted not by Octavian, but by the realization that Rome had already won. Cleopatra watched him carefully. She did not accuse. She did not comfort. She understood something Antony did not yet accept. Wars do not end when battles are lost. They end when belief dies. Rome advances without mercy. Octavian did not rush. He secured Greece. He claimed loyalty from the east. He allowed Antony's reputation to rot under the weight of rumor and silence. By the time Roman forces marched toward Egypt, there was no fear left, only inevitability. Cleopatra prepared Alexandria for siege. Walls were reinforced, supplies rationed, messengers sent to allies who never replied. Egypt was alone. The queen's last strategy. Cleopatra did not collapse into despair. She thought, if Rome would not negotiate with Antony, perhaps it would negotiate with her. She sent messages to Octavian, carefully worded, controlled, measured. She offered submission. She offered Egypt's wealth. She offered loyalty. She did not offer Antony. Octavian read every word. and smiled. The betrayal, Antony believed. Antony learned of the letters. Rome made sure of that. They fed him lies with precision, twisting Cleopatra's strategy into treachery. They wanted Antony unstable. They succeeded. For the first time, Antony doubted her. Not openly, not honestly, but doubt was enough. The final battle that wasn't. When Octavian's forces reached the outskirts of Alexandria, resistance crumbled. Some of Antony's remaining troops surrendered without fighting. Others defected. The Roman flag rose where Egyptian banners once flew. Antony armed himself. He charged into battle expecting glory or death. He found neither. His forces dissolved. Rome did not need to defeat him. It simply waited while he destroyed himself. The lie that killed him. A message reached Antony. Cleopatra was dead. It was false. But Antony believed it. In that moment, the last thread holding him to life snapped. He had lost Rome. He had lost honor. And now he believed he had lost her. Antony fell on his sword. A queen confronts death. Cleopatra was alive. When Antony was carried into the palace, bleeding, broken, dying, she did not scream. She held him. She forgave him. Antony died in her arms, whispering words history would never record. And with him died Rome's last real rival. Octavian arrives. Octavian entered Alexandria as a victor. Controlled, silent, watching. He did not treat Cleopatra as an enemy. He treated her as a prize. Cleopatra understood instantly. Rome did not want her dead. Rome wanted her displayed. The queen who refused the cage. That night, Cleopatra looked at her children. She looked at the crown. She looked at the future Rome had prepared for her. A triumph, chains, humiliation. She made her decision without tears. Queens do not beg. They choose.